Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, State Farm, and WeatherTech. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb. Welcome, everyone, to MotorWeek Podcast number 168 and around our Keystone-shaped table in Studio C at MotorWeek World Headquarters. I am pleased to have with us writer-producer Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson.
So glad to be here, no matter what you call me.
And on the other hand, Ben Davis, our road test producer. Ben Davis, no
Same
relation.
Here, always a pleasure.
Our online content coordinator, Greg Carlos. Almost messed his name up, too.
I'm here and totally not tired.
And by telephone, all the way from the sunny state of Florida, Lauren Morrison, our FYI reporter. Lauren?
Hello.
There she is. Okay, everyone, we've got a full slate to get through on this podcast. 3 vehicles to review, a special segment that Lauren's doing, a lightning round, viewer question, rant and rave. So here we go. 2017 Mazda CX-5, second generation of Mazda's compact SUV. Pleased with it? Underwhelmed? A real contender now? What do you think?
I think they made huge improvements on the interior. It's a lot closer to the CX-9. I guess the CX-9 was the one that came out first, so everything kind of just trickled down in. And it's a huge improvement there. Always been a great driving SUV. No difference here. If I had to complain about one thing, maybe the steering's a little bit too heavy for daily use. Other than that, though, still solid, one of my favorite.
You know, considering that they really didn't tinker with the powertrain very much and there's no turbo or anything, I think it's darn responsive. I mean, it does everything you want it to do. Very impressed.
Yeah, certainly not, as modern powertrain as many of the others, as you mentioned. I've been in like 3 different ones, and I've only been in the Grand Touring trim, which, as Greg mentioned, the interior is borderline luxury car. Haven't been in like a base model, so I'd be interested to see, exactly what they've done with that one. But they did quiet it down. Materials are a lot nicer. Still fun to drive. It's
Pretty
definitely
car,
one of the
too.
best.
Really good looking car as well.
When you were driving it, it's got this, what do they call it, G-vectoring?
Correct.
System, drive mode system, which operates differently from most other systems. Instead of using a front brake to vector torque back and forth, it actually cuts the ignition on the engine momentarily, cuts the spark.
Right, uses engine braking versus using the real actual brakes.
And it works well. I think everybody agrees with that. Now, I was looking into the system. The reason they took that approach was actually a psychological one. They found through test that there was something about doing that loaded up the occupants' brains that a change in direction of the vehicle or something was happening, and it actually made people more comfortable and the driver more comfortable when they came to a sharp corner where this system would activate than if you just used braking. It was like it went beyond just the mechanical. How do you do this mechanically to make it work, to make the vehicle handle better, to load up the front tires before a corner, but also not to upset the occupants? I thought that was pretty ingenious myself.
Yeah, some of the braking ones, they are, a little upsetting if you can feel them engage, and then just the whole idea of using the brakes to help you go faster, a lot of people can't grasp, but it was a very smooth system. You couldn't really feel it working, which
and
I
that's
guess is what
I think their point. Utility-wise, it's similar to before, but a little more rear leg room, a little bit more rear cargo room, or did one suffer?
I think
the
the cargo room is
chassis.
actually a little bit less. Yeah.
Less cargo room, but a little bit more rear
seat
leg room. Yeah, because they did use the same chassis, and I know we're always talking about all new, but I'm not so sure what they did is any different than a lot of other automakers do. They may use that same basic floor pan, but everything on it's new. So I don't think they get any marks taken off for that. Their sales have finally started to wake up. They sold okay, but they weren't that special, and certainly nothing like CR-V and RAV4. But last month they were up like 23%, I think. So it seems like that the CX-9, this new CX-9 is doing okay.
Yeah, I think for years they've hung their hat on being the most fun to drive and all that, but maybe they realize that's not the best. They need to appeal to more people. There's a very limited amount of people that really care about handling in an SUV. People really want comfort and space, so that's kind of the tack they're taking now.
I have a question for Lauren. Lauren, you live in a state where most roads are straight and most terrain is flat. When you get into the various SUVs that you test down there, how do you tell one from another? You've got good roads, no frost heaves, very few curves. I mean, what is it that in those kinds of conditions, because people out west in the U.S. have similar, what makes one vehicle stand out over another?
I think kind of just like what Brian said is I typically go for like comfort, for utility. Can I put a lot of groceries in it? It's more about, I guess, the interior than per se the drive. Are the seats comfortable? How are the passengers? How's the roof back? I don't think it's so much the drive down here because like you said, the roads, I mean, there's really not, from the top of the state to the bottom, there's really not much difference. You're just flat.
And speaking of comfortable SUVs, our next vehicle we're going to talk about is a trendsetter. I don't know how else to put it. The 2018 Buick Enclave. The first Enclave was the miniature SUV that started the subcompact luxury SUV trend. They've now redone it.
Encore.
That would be Encore. Yeah.
Encore. Sorry.
Yeah.
The Enclave's the big one.
Yeah.
That's the Encore. And what we really want to talk about today is the Enclave, which is what Greg just got back from driving. I'm not dyslexic, but I can't read anyway.
Well, they all sound the same.
Encore, Enclave,
Envision.
Well, you can't fault an
Maybe,
automaker
now that I'm thinking about that.
But anyway, I know just recently we did have an Encore, and we thought that was a nice improvement, if not revolutionary. So here we have the Enclave, which, of course, is the second of this new generation larger crossover utility from GM after the Acadia at GMC. This one, though, is a bit longer. It's a bit posher. But did it impress you?
Actually, yeah, it did. And I kind of came away as impressed as I was with the LaCrosse. Going in there, somebody my age doesn't exactly get excited about a Buick. And I wouldn't say it's an exciting car, but it is a really comfortable SUV. It looks a lot better. Because the old one was kind of, what was it, like 10 years old?
Yes, it was 10 years on the market.
And I mean, that was
a long time.
Gotten sort of stale. They've updated styling. It looks much better. Really good looking from the rear. Inside, they've updated the interior. The whole dash area is actually really nice looking now. They've avoided the trend of putting a screen like right on top of the dash, like an afterthought. So I applaud them for keeping it all kind of smooth and seamless across. Easy to use, which is always good because they do sell to an older customer. It's got to be easy to use. They also have an Avenir trim, which is eventually going to trickle down into other Buicks. That's really their high-end trim level. They cut a couple of corners here and there. It's a nice presentation, but again, kind of like in other Buicks, you start feeling around, you'll feel hard plastics. Buick, though, has kind of admitted that this is attainable luxury. So
they don't claim that they're basically they claim they're premium.
Right. They're not going to be able to compete with a Mercedes or a BMW in terms of sheer quality and
it's not priced like them either.
Right, exactly. So it's a little bit cheaper. The powertrain's still 3.6 liter V6. It's a torquey engine. It doesn't have a lot of horsepower, but it has plenty of torque. And that's good for, when you get away from a start, that's what you're looking for is a torque. New 9-speed transmission, which I think works really well. It doesn't get confused like a lot of other high gear, or a lot of transmissions with high gears. So yeah, it's just another thing is that it's a very comfortable in a crazy, crazy quiet interior. And I'm talking like maybe the quietest car I've ever driven. It's that quiet.
I haven't driven the new one, but I used to own the first generation. And I was a little disappointed they didn't stretch a little bit more as far as styling of the interior. But they obviously know their customer. Here's a brand that used to be all about big road mastering sedans, and now they're all about big road mastering SUVs. So they've made a transition. They made it successfully.
Yeah, I was wondering about the Avenir, which you already answered. Now, interior-wise, do they still have the ice blue lighting, or do they finally get rid of that?
They still, that's a good question. I didn't really take notice of it, and up until about a year ago, I was like super against everything they did because they always it was either the stitching or the lighting or something they would have, and I want to say yes, it's still there, but the fact that I can't remember it, maybe it's just a little more subtle now.
How did it drive?
I thought it was great. I mean, you know what this SUV is. We didn't drive it hard. I didn't drive it hard, but I drove it a lot on the highway, and I drove it on various back roads, and it's just very comfortable. The car doesn't try to. I keep calling it a car.
No, that's all right. They're all collectible.
They pretty much are.
It doesn't try to be anything that it's not, and you got to applaud Buick for that because they set out to make a comfortable driving SUV, and it's exactly that. And I could certainly see myself taking a long road trip in this thing and being perfectly happy.
And they obviously have taken their quiet tuning technology to new heights with it. It's funny that the first thing you mentioned was some of the hard plastics. I remember the very first Enclave we tested, we were complaining that the door pockets, which were hard plastic, had some rough edges, and I don't think that ever got corrected over the entire 10-year run of the car.
If you try to put like a bottle or something deep down in the pocket, you will catch a little bit.
But a nice improvement, and it's Enclave, everybody, not Encore. As a matter of fact, the Encore would almost fit in the back of an Enclave. Moving on to our next vehicle, the Honda Accord, and Lauren is the one on our staff who has had the most firsthand experience. Lauren, new Accord in an age of SUVs taking over the market. Is it a worthy successor, and will it have staying power?
Yes, I think it will. I really liked it. This is crazy. This is the 10th generation of the Accord. It's been, I think, a little over 40 years since the Accord really burst onto the scene in the U.S., and they're really going all in with this. I mean, there was a lot of talk in this SUV world. What is the Accord? Is it going to make it? And I think on this press event, they were saying, we're all in, and we think it's one of our best sellers. And they really think that the vehicle is going to do well in sales. There was a couple of engine options. I had the chance to get in both the 1.5 liter turbo, so they're going all in on turbos. Got the chance to get in that. 192 horsepower. It's the most powerful base engine that an Accord has ever had in it. It was a really nice drive. We got, to experience some winding roads in New Hampshire. Also got to get in the 2-liter turbo, which is actually the same type engine that's in the Honda Civic Type R, but it's kind of been detuned a little bit. It's not as aggressive. In the Type R, I think there's like 306 horsepower. In the 2-liter turbo in the Accord, it's like 252 horsepower. It's got some unique pistons, a different turbo than the Type R. So there's been some other internal changes. It's just not as aggressive as the Type R, but I think it's still a great drive. I really enjoyed it. Also got a chance to get in. They have a manual option in the 2-liter turbo as well. That was really fun to drive, a 6-speed. So in terms of the drive, I mean, I loved it. I thought it was great. Obviously, 2-liter more powerful, but the 1.5 base engine, I think you're going to be just fine. Definitely a more sporty Accord than we've seen in the past. Got things like grip shape, steering wheel, and one of my favorite things is they brought back the volume and tuning knob. It's not just the touch screen. I know a lot of people out there were always complaining about it just being strictly touch screen. So they brought back the tuning and volume knobs. So
both.
A lot of people are really excited about that.
So they basically have taken the 2-liter turbo and replaced the V6, and the 1.5 turbo replaces the old 2-liter.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this will be, so if that's true to course, where the old non-turbo 2-liter was the volume leader, were they saying that the 1.5 turbo, they expect that to be the volume leader?
Yeah, they think that'll be the volume leader. Yep.
Yeah. Did you enjoy driving the Accord to the extent that you would say, maybe I'd be happier in this than I would, say, a Pilot?
I did. I think, I don't know, it's always so hard for me to go one way or the other, but I think I did enjoy, in terms of, I think it's just a different buyer. I think that you're going to have a younger crowd going for the sedans. And for SUVs, you're just going to have somebody who just, I think it's more about space when it comes to the Pilot. There's, plenty of space in the Accord for your everyday needs. But I think something like the Pilot, I don't know. I would definitely probably go with the Accord.
Are they going to do a hybrid?
Yeah, they are. So I think early 2018, they don't have any pricing on that right now, but early 2018, we did get a chance to get in a hybrid very briefly, did a quick loop in the hybrid, another great car. Definitely, it was like pre-production, so it was very basic, but hopefully we'll get that into our MotorWeek lot when it comes out. We can give it a little more test drive, but from what I saw in the quick drive that I did, I'm just pretty impressed with the hybrid as well.
Well, I've got you on the line and have you on the fuel economy kick a bit. You're preparing an FYI segment about fuel economy information for buyers that are just starting the process of looking for a new car. Can you kind of give us some details of what that segment's going to cover and what you found during your research?
Yeah, I think, when you think of buying a car, one of your first steps you think of is going to a dealership, but you can save a lot of time and a lot of money just by doing a lot of research ahead of time before you even hit the dealership lot. So we've been looking at a lot of, these are free websites, which is the greatest thing, and they're all websites. So, they've got tried and true facts. You've got like safercar.gov, where you can watch actual crash testing on vehicles that you're interested in. You've also got all of the ratings for any vehicle that you're interested in. And it's not just, current model cars. They go back quite a few years. So if you're looking at a used vehicle, you can go and look up the safety ratings for these cars. In terms of like fuel economy, if you're looking into stuff like that, you've got fueleconomy.gov. The one thing I really loved when looking at this website was you can compare cars. So say you were really interested in a Honda Accord, but you were also thinking maybe a Camry. You can compare those side by side and look at the facts and figures for each one and maybe kind of see which one might be a better fit for you. You can map out trips as well. It can tell you, from point A to point B, this is how much you're going to spend in gas. And, we were just talking a second ago about hybrids. If you're looking into alternative fuel vehicles, the afdc.energy.gov website, it really allows you to look at all kinds of alternative fuel sources, whether it be hydrogen, electric, biofuel, and it maps out stations throughout the whole country. So if you were thinking, hey, I might be interested in an EV, it'll map out these many locations around you to charge up, to fuel up. So just a lot of interesting websites that are out there that you can look into before you really even hit the dealership lot, which really preps you for anything that might be thrown at you.
And you don't have to wade through a lot of commercials and so forth. It's all right there. It's commercial free.
All right there. Exactly. It's free.
The one thing I like, extra thing I like that they've added to fueleconomy.gov is you now can go on and see what actual people are getting for fuel economy versus what the official EPA numbers are.
Yeah, so a lot of times, you would get estimates, and, it's always a little bit off. So that was one really cool thing is real live drivers. Go in, put in, the exact model, make, everything of their car, and kind of give a rundown of what they're seeing in terms of their fuel economy, which is, real world. So that was, I agree, that's a pretty interesting facet of the website.
It's a good segment coming up for anybody that's either first time in the market for a new car or basically it's been 7 to 10 years since they bought one, and a lot of information that, frankly, you're paying for. So why not utilize it? We're going to switch now to our lightning round, and the format we're using these days is each panelist gets 30 seconds to weigh in a trending topic, although I won't guarantee that somebody like me won't interrupt. When time's up, you're going to hear the bell from Joe Ligo, our producer. Here we go. And Lauren, we'll have you weigh in on this as well. A recent AAA study found that in-car infotainment systems take the driver's eyes off the road and hands off the wheel for dangerous lengths of time, sometimes for more than 40 seconds at a time. Study participants had to use touchscreens and voice commands for tasks like changing the radio, programming navigation. AAA is using the research to help automakers design safer infotainment systems. Well, they're hoping they will. As professional car testers, what would we recommend automakers change to reduce distractive driving? Who would like to start?
Just go down the line.
Ooh, yeah. I'll start.
All right, Ben.
I
take it
think
away.
the first obvious thing is we have to get rid of touch volume, touch tuning. I mean, bring back the traditional, howbeit boring, dials that adjust volume.
Just like the Accord just did that
Yeah.
Lauren was telling us about.
That one off the bat's a no-brainer. I'd like to see more of the steering wheel controls as well. Nothing like the 90s Pontiac version Trans Am style with the buttons and the horn, but I like the direction the FCA takes in a lot of their products where you'll have a channel button on the back. But not only will go through your presets, but will go just simply
Manual.
advanced channels as well, which
Scan.
is key.
FCA does that
That's
really
a
well.
good idea. Greg, pick it up.
Yeah, to take that a step further, I would say my personal favorite is using like the iDrive system or Mazda system or anything where your controller, if you have to use a knob, it's down right where your hand is near the shifter. It at least keeps you from like moving forward and reaching over across the dash. I would also say let's figure out this voice control system because it's still so cumbersome to use. They never understand you. Somebody's got to hook up with Amazon or somebody and because I have an Echo and it works great. I can just talk casually to this thing and it understands everything I say. That's got to be figured out. I don't understand why we're so far behind in cars with using voice technology.
Autonomous driving is the way to go, man. That way we don't have to worry about being distracted at all. We just sit there and let the car drive us and touch whatever screens we want, whenever we want.
I would like to say that we're using something we already have badly, and that is head-up displays. For sure. Right now they're still mostly in premium vehicles, and what's up there but speed and turn signal, stuff that barely is right below it on the instrument panel. Why don't we use that so when you use the steering wheel controls that you've been talking about or even the knobs, you get an instantaneous change of whatever you're dealing with up on the screen, and you can see that and you're still looking straight ahead. We've got all the technology we need, and we're not using it properly. I agree on voice control, but maybe that's never going to be perfect, and frankly, a lot of people are just not using it.
But it can. What I'm saying is it can be because there's other people who can do it, right?
You're talking about Siri and so forth.
Exactly, yeah.
But then you have the man listening on your
Dude,
conversation.
I honestly don't even care, man.
He's listening anyway.
I love Amazon so much. They can be Skynet for all I care, and I don't swear.
Lauren, save us.
I agree with Ben and Greg. I think first off, knobs. It's just what's going to happen. It's the best. It's the most useful. It's the easiest. Yeah, it might not look the best, but it's the easiest to navigate through. And then voice command. I don't think I've ever been in a vehicle where I'm like, oh, this has been great. This has been a great voice command experience. I think it just needs to get better, and that would be an easy fix.
They have to be able to understand conversation. It's not like pick one of the 10 things on the screen and say it.
Yeah.
I'm a really even-tempered guy, but I've punched steering wheels over that stuff before.
If they could read our brains, then they wouldn't even have to talk to it, right?
Oh, maybe
we could
that's
just
the
know where we
answer.
want to go.
Just wear one of those halos.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, everybody. Okay, Bruce is here with a question. And, Ben, I'm going to have this you answer this first, and maybe, Greg, you can chime in.
Yeah.
I noticed your recent episode of the Hyundai Ioniq Hybrid and the test track ratings, acceleration, and so forth. I just wanted to know, do you typically run the acceleration test with the car in normal mode, sport mode, or eco mode? Talking about the various driving modes on the various cars we test, which change throttle response and steering and so
definitely.
forth. Go ahead.
I will try normal mode, but I would say typically sport mode. It just sharpens up it holds your gears longer, and
we're after the fastest time.
Sure. Where it becomes a blurred situation is when you have multi-sport modes, where you have a sport and a sport plus mode and a full-on race mode. I find it in situations like that where sometimes if sport plus is the highest, sport is usually a little better to launch in because it doesn't allow as much wheel spin as a sport plus mode or a track tuned mode would allow. So
yeah, also
that's where it gets a little.
If it's suspension, you get a little more weight transfer to the rear in non-sport mode, which helps you launch
Right.
So the answer generally, if there is a sport mode, you go for that, even if there's something even sportier like Sport Plus.
Definitely an ionic
It depends.
hybrid.
We do it enough times so that you can pretty much just dial it into whatever gives you the best time.
Yeah, I think when I used to go up there more, the first run is just everything in normal, and that's your baseline, and then you just keep trying to take time off that, whether it's sport modes or launching at different RPMs. You go through everything.
Yeah, traction control.
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong. That's for the track. When I get into a vehicle here that, has been here and a variety of drivers have been in it, 9 times out of 10, it seems to be set into eco mode. Is that your experience?
That's
A
probably
lot of stuff, a lot of things
Ron or
default
Joe
into
must
that.
have been driving. They're the only people that would put it in eco modes.
Okay.
I found that
Makes it a little bit more rubbery.
that giant G-Wagon that we just had in, that would default you to eco mode every time you turn the
There
key.
you go. That could be
course
the
it will.
answer. Of course, that's probably the one vehicle that you need eco mode in more than any other. Any rant and raves this week? Anybody got something that's sticking in their craw?
I already ranted about the whole voice control thing.
That was a good one.
This is, I don't know whether it's a rant or rave. I was lucky enough to spend 2 weeks driving in Europe lately, and mostly Germany, so I won't say all of Europe. And it was, you're on the Autobahn, you're driving very, very fast. It was an absolute pleasure to be able to drive fast, knowing that the drivers ahead of you were also being very diligent, were paying attention to the road, were staying to the right so that you never had issues of passing, that the trucks weren't sitting in the left lane just because they felt like it. And you were forced, and I liked it, to use your mirrors because no matter how fast you're going, somebody's coming up from behind you going much faster. I will say you felt a little bit more fatigued when it was over because you were having to pay much more attention, but you also felt much more secure. So this whole thing about, hey, speed is the worst enemy, speed is not the worst enemy in this country when we drive. It's other drivers. If the drivers are better and adhering to the road, to a logical set of road rules, it can be a much more pleasurable experience and go much faster. It was quite exhilarating.
We've talked this one to death, but again, I was talking to somebody on a recent press event, and I think one of the biggest problems that people have to get over is you have to realize that it's not your job to police other drivers. I think some people
blocking the left
exactly.
lane?
I think some people can get into this mindset where they think, well, okay, sure, the person behind you might be driving like a jerk, but it's not up to you to make sure that they stop driving like a jerk. Just get out of the way. Your job is to keep traffic flowing. So let the police the road, and you just worry about making sure everything rides smoothly and safely.
Because otherwise you end up with road rage.
Yeah.
Lauren,
Did you see the recent one where that dude jumped on the front of the bus?
Yeah.
That was insane.
Yeah.
Because
anything in Florida that basically makes you want to scream at the cars around you?
No, nothing lately. Nah, we've just been getting through all these hurricanes, so really, that's all. That doesn't have anything to do with driving, so.
Well, have you started to see any water-damaged cars popping up down there, or is it too early?
No, but I know we've done segments in the past on that, with Katrina and everything like that, but I haven't. I don't think I think everybody's just getting back up and running, but I'm sure between, the hurricanes here, the hurricane over in Texas, I'm sure that water-damaged vehicles are going to be flooding the market. So I know Goss has done a segment in the past on checking, and making sure, seeing, if you're going to buy a used car. Definitely some stuff on our website to check out if you are in the coming months going to buy a used car.
Do a title check, everybody, or you'll be ranting and raving about what you bought. Thanks, Lauren, for joining us by phone. Thanks for everyone around our table. Brian Robinson, Ben Davis, Greg
Also
Carlos.
throwing it in.
Our MotorWeek podcast number 168 comes to a close with a thanks to Jim Bigwood, our audio engineer, and our podcast creator, Bob Mixter. I'm John Davis for all of us at MotorWeek. Thanks for listening, watching, and just being a faithful part of MotorWeek.
You've been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, State Farm, and WeatherTech. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series, each week on your local PBS station.